You are listening to the Enormocast.
Hey folks, I know that most climbers go into the mountains to get away from the scary realities of modern life. And complicated real-world things like run-ins with the law can frighten and confuse you and cause you to leap from your sprinter and run into the night while being chased by a Utah statey named Rulon and his bloodthirsty, drug-sniffing German Shepherd. But don't despair. Just like you got over your fear of the internet tubes and managed to download this podcast, there's a cure for your fear of the legal system. Dan Markoff is a climber, Enormocast listener, partner at Atkins & Markoff, and he has set up an email hotline to field any of your questions about the law. Dan knows you'd rather be avoiding reality in the mountains rather than facing it in the courtroom. So why don't you let him help you out? Email climbinglawyer@gmail.com with any questions you might have. Once again, that's climbinglawyer@gmail.com. All right. Thanks for your time. Let's get to it.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormodome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
big
house. We
place,
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000 seats?
We really should.
The hell are you doing?
I couldn't sleep. I'm checking the ropes. There was a frayed end on your rope, and I'm cutting it out. Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime's good for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes. And don't forget our friends at Defiant Bean Roasters. DefiantBean.com. Enter Normo at checkout for a discount on great coffee. And now back to the show.
So what's our segue from
Yeah,
this
what's going on?
conversation?
This
Dude,
is
we're
being
just-
recorded, is it?
Yeah, we're just
Okay.
gonna go in because I'm just gonna do the intro within the.
Later on.
No, I'm not gonna do one of
No.
those.
Oh,
People,
nice.
I don't know if people are listening to the intros anymore.
Yeah. I think
So-
they're pretty ready for the content that follows.
Okay. Well, anyway, welcome to episode 46. I'm gonna put this out next, so we're on episode 46. Can you believe that?
Whoa.
That's-
Do you guys even remember what episode you did before?
I'm going to guess
You
it
do.
was in the 20s, but it's just a guess.
No, it was teens.
Whoa.
I don't remember either, but it was like 15 or 16.
Wow.
And
Dude, here's to you for putting out that many
I
episodes.
know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Clink, clink, clink.
I've hit 2 a month from the beginning. I've never blown it.
Impressive.
That's amazing. I can't even return just regular old emails on a monthly basis.
Well, I don't do that.
Like
which
I said,
people will notice.
you are the champion of executive functioning.
Thank you very much. But my friends Michael Logan and Jen Bisharat, formerly Vennon, actually on the last episode her name was Jen Vennon, but it's changed officially, right? You're done with Vennon.
Well, it's my middle name. No.
Oh.
I scooched it over one.
So you have 4 names now?
No, I got rid of the middle one. I didn't particularly care for it. Just moved it on in.
Did you really somehow officially do that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, my name's Jennifer Vennon Bisharat.
Nice.
It rolls off the tongue.
It works. Except for everyone calls me Vennon, and that's how I answer the phone at school, so.
Right.
I can't get
well,
it straight.
It was just recently. Anyway, since the episode, it was the partners episode that you guys were on. Jen married Andrew Bisharat and is now Jen Bisharat. So.
Yep.
And I was going to start by asking you guys what you've been climbing on, and but we got a bunch of that. Well, actually, it was kind of interesting. I don't know how much of that I'll leave in the beginning. So. And it's curious because this is going to be a listener mail episode, but it's not. It's also like listener issue episode because there's kind of a theme. I get a lot of requests about certain topics. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure they're topics worthy of an entire show, but we'll find that out because maybe if we start talking about them, we'll realize that maybe we could have kept going.
Are we going to be couch psychiatrists?
A little bit, yeah.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of that. I will do some emails and also some of these issues, and so this might cover a broader spectrum than just doing emails. But one of the questions I actually get a lot about is from climbers because I think a lot of fans of the show are one of the reasons they're listening to climbing podcasts is because they don't have like all the time in the world to go climbing, and this is like one of their bridges. I get a lot of people that are like, yeah, it's awesome. I get to listen to this at work and keeps me stoked. So I got a lot of cubicle people out there.
You don't have a lot of people climbing their red point with you in their ear, like on their iPod?
Oh, man. I don't think so.
It
seems like
we
that would
should
be really
check
distracting.
I challenge
Climb!
I challenge someone to listen to this
Left hand next.
episode
Left hand
while they
next.
send their project.
I don't think so. Although, actually, you know what? There was a video that turned up recently that's got a shot of him rolling up the Enormocast.
I saw that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you remember who it is?
He's a guy who climbs very strong because
In
He
Charleston.
was climbing in Charleston. He lives
Yeah.
in California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, a couple listeners said check it out, and Chris Parker sent it to me too.
So he was it looked like he was getting psyched out.
Yeah, getting stoked.
Yeah.
I don't know if he actually listened to it on the Red Point, but anyway, what I was getting to is that one of the questions that people ask me is about lifestyle, and particularly like how you climb and have like a real life. And, so we could actually kind of start with that along with this question of like what you've been climbing.
Yeah.
Because Michael Logan here has 2 kids. How old are they?
6 and 8.
6 and 8. So it's like, that's time consuming.
And it's also this is the prime time to be a parent. Like, this is when your kids are the most fun, I would argue. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't want to necessarily spend time away from them. And, you're also a teacher, which is terribly time consuming. We just spent an hour talking about that, actually. So is Jen. So, we could start with that little topic because I hear that a lot. Like, how do you end up like mixing it all up? And I want to say one thing before you answer that is that your wife, Sasha, is always like telling me like, you got to take Michael climbing. You got to take Michael climbing. So she understands that it's kind of this part of you that needs to be sort of fulfilled.
Exercised.
And I think you are always looking for this balance of like, do I want to be away from my family, but at the same time, if I don't go climbing, at least from her perspective, you turn into kind of a grump. So
Yeah. Well, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're talking to you
so
right now.
I think that it's a really good question because I think climbing is a harder pursuit to do at a high level or at to take really seriously while having other things in your life because unlike other hobbies that I can think of, it seems to take large chunks of time. So I think it's pretty obvious that for me, like being able to climb inside once a week is the way I can do it.
Right.
And we were just talking about how climbing inside is a pretty different animal, and especially for you, Chris, it's like you've climbed outside a lot, and so you know kind of what it really tastes like to be outside and experiencing the real deal. And it's really different to be inside. But it is my salvation as a climber. It's how I am able to still sort of endure as a climber.
It seems too like sport climbing, fits more into kind of a normal person's life than let's say we all always had to go out and do some like multi-pitch route with gear, like whenever we wanted to go climbing.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
And hike.
And hike.
Yeah.
Just thinking
I
about
agree.
like the family scene that I see at like places like Rifle, like you can the gym climbing translates to sport climbing a little bit better.
Yes. You don't see families with their little porta cribs like at the Needles.
Right. At the base of the diamond. We're just going to, play with these toys. Mom and Dad will be back in like 6 hours if it doesn't lightning storm. If it lightning storms, go,
We yell rock, move towards the edge of the crib.
Right. Exactly. That's kind of where I'm getting at. I don't know. Maybe not, but it's a thought.
But I think it's a hard sport to do,
Right.
like when you have a lot of other things in your life. And actually, there are certain climbers who I've always been really inspired by, who have shown me that it's possible. Like one of my heroes has always been Chip Chase, who like is an incredible Eastern medicine practitioner and acupuncturist, and he goes all over the world speaking about his job, but he also climbs at a really high level. And he doesn't have children, but I really respect people who are able to find that balance between lots of different components in their life. So.
Now, Jen, I was going to ask you about what you've been climbing, but we were just talking about how you kind of took the year off.
Yeah, it didn't quite happen for me this year. Well, usually I think I climb a lot in the summer, and I get like pretty fit, and we're climbing, 4 days a week or so, and then the fall hits, and I have to go back to work. But taking 5 days rest is probably exactly what my body needs, and then I climb really great on the weekends. But this summer, we were planning the wedding. I got a little bit carried away with that, and it just never kind of happened. And then fall came around, and I wasn't ready to do anything. I didn't have any projects ready to go, and I just wasn't so psyched. So I didn't really ever kind of start this year. I'm hoping it works out in the long run.
Yeah?
We'll have to see.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I feel like I always take the winter off.
Right.
And I always come back stronger than I was before.
Uh-huh.
So maybe this is just a really long winter.
The long winter of your discontent.
Yeah.
Well, you did have a wedding to plan, and it was a fantastic wedding, by the way.
Yes.
Thanks. I had a great time.
Yeah, awesome. That's always a plus.
Yeah, and it's been a hectic year for school.
Right.
But
do you think that it may be harder for you to maintain when you have a lot of other things in your life because you climb at such a high level as a sport climber, and the expectation to stay climbing at that high level is there, and so it's hard to...
Yeah, and I think that's what I had a hard time stepping up to this year, is I know exactly what it takes to climb as hard as I want to climb, and I didn't have it.
Yeah, right.
I didn't have the time or, honestly, the motivation to get there, and like I told you guys earlier, I struggled with it, and I've had many a breakdowns of being worried about it, but in the end, climbing's supposed to be the thing I love, and it is the thing I love, so I don't understand why I'm getting so distraught about maybe not climbing.
So there's the answer to your question. It's like, it's really hard.
Right.
It's hard.
To have climbing in your life.
Right.
But the years that it works so seamlessly. The years that, I'm just so psyched, and it's such a relief from my day-to-day grind of school, and it's just a different outlet. And this year, I don't know, maybe the day-to-day grind of school's been, I was telling you, it's been one of the harder years I've had yet, and it's not feeling like an outlet, it's just feeling like another thing I have to do. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a rest. Although I climbed the Colorado Monument, my first tower.
You did a desert tower. See, that's just the thing. Now, this is a great segue because, both you guys and myself, I'm in this group as well, where there's a certain level of achievement we expect out of our climbing. And all of us, I think, probably have always been worried about whether or not, that's so important that we don't even like climbing below this certain expectation. Are we these soulless, grade chaser kind of people? Not so much for you, Jen, but Michael and I are getting...
I think absolutely for me.
Well, I'm
grade chasing.
All I'm saying is that Michael and I are getting a little older, so we're sort of,
faced with
trying to not go gently into that good night. To rage against the dying of the light. And so it's I actually do kind of worry, will I dig climbing in 10 years when I'm off the back or whatever?
Let me say one more thing about that, because I never answered the question, which is what I've been climbing on.
Oh.
And the last great trad climb I did, which actually wasn't that recently, it was a couple months ago, was a 5-pitch 5.9, and it might be the most fun I've ever had on a rock climb.
What was that?
The Frigidaire Buttress in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
And I was with 5 people. And we were like...
That sounds horrible.
No, it was really fun. All the ledges are giant. It was just this party at every ledge. And it took us a really long time. But it was a beautiful... It's 3-dimensional hiking. And you end up on these big terraces that look out over Las Vegas. And they're really flat. And then there'll be a beautiful pitch of 5.8 above that. And so I think there is hope for the aging climber who once, could only... be respectable if they were climbing 5.12.
Okay.
I really do.
All right.
I don't know. Well, we climbed that tower last weekend, and I will tell you, I'm not a tower climber. I'm going to have to face that. And Andrew would say, this is the easier pitch, or blah, blah, blah. And it's 5.8, so it's not a hard pitch. But when you had to, kind of scurry and slip around and wiggle through things. I was just like, oh, this is like awful. And then we get to the crux of this 5/8 where there's like these little pockets that were drilled in, and I got a little bit steep, and I was like, this is so much easier. Like, but do they have whole towers like that?
Yeah.
That are actually have holds on them?
Oh, yeah.
Because that would be interesting to me. Because whatever we were doing was nuts.
It's a lot more crack climbing, I'm afraid to tell you. So, you went to
Oh,
Indian
yeah.
Creek this year, too.
I went to Indian Creek
so
this year.
This has been a great year for you. Just
I
different
wouldn't
horizons,
say
different
that
things.
the Indian Creek experience was exactly great.
Yeah, but see, that's just the thing, is you probably still have this expectation of how hard you ought to climb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Right. Let me read this out. We're going to do a listener mail.
Okay.
Okay, because this totally fits. There's a couple from this guy. I think, I'm not going to say any last names. This is from Bob, I believe. My notes are kind of messed up, but anyway, it says, excuse me. I am interested in your view on grade chasing. Recently, on some of my past few climbing trips, I've noticed that there are people who want to only climb 512 and up. Anyone in the room? I don't see anything wrong with wanting to climb harder and project on something, but I've noticed that these people seem to think that all climbs are like that because they red pointed 112C and they should be able to breeze through a 12A or 11 plus or whatever. Then they seem to get discouraged because they can't do it. I'm only 20, so this guy's like not some crusty old guy, which is usually who you hear this stuff from. I'm only 20 and I've been climbing for a little over a year now, but this is typical attitude in climbing. Or are these people blinded by some sort of ego trip to see the different intricacies of these routes? This is something that's been bugging me a lot lately. So, I mean, isn't that like kind of this huge thing in climbing, like this balance, this thing that, I don't know.
I think it's really hard when you climb predominantly in a place like Rifle, where I know exactly how hard those climbs should feel.
Sure.
And at that grade, and then you go out and you get on something that shouldn't be hard, and you get your tail handed to you. Very discouraging. But I don't know if it's because of the grade or if it's because I have an idea of how my body should perform and it's not.
Well, what about, I think the big question really in that is, what about when you go somewhere new?
I wouldn't go somewhere new and get on something hard for me. I don't understand that entirely. I like climbing on things I could maybe succeed on quickly and having a ton of fun and doing a bunch of routes.
So is the question whether it's fair to climb only a certain grade?
I think
I don't
know if there's
question.
I think the issue is just that same issue of like, if you seem like this person that only wants to climb these grades and or hard, is that sort of like depicting you as some sort of egomaniac that doesn't understand climbing? And one thing I just said there that actually made me kind of stop was that climbing hard and chasing grades, are they the same thing, or is it kind of two different things?
I think this is a classic example of an and. Like, this is not an or.
Okay.
I think that both realities are true. I think that, like Jen was saying, climbing at the level you know your body is capable, once you've sort of tasted that honey, and you know what it feels like to be at your most fit and what it feels like to move on rock at that level, you kind of don't ever want to go back because it's so...
Yeah.
It's an incredible feeling. But I also think that there's something to the egomaniac part of it. Like, I know that grades have mattered to me, and I know that they've mattered to me for the wrong reasons. And I can't imagine that there's anyone out there who hasn't experienced that a little bit.
Right.
So can't there be two?
Oh, I totally agree.
Realities?
I've definitely had my ego get in the way and had to fully face that and, step away from a rock climb that I thought I should have been able to do easy and couldn't. And it almost ruined me. But on the same token, I wouldn't buy a plane ticket to I wouldn't fly to Seus and go climb 5'9".
Right.
Like, I would never.
But would you go to
do
Red
that.
Rocks and climb 5'9"?
Maybe.
Would you go to Otto's route and climb 5'9"?
Climb 5'8" there, and I had a really good time.
All right.
But
Well,
I just think if you're going to put this investment in, for me, the harder routes are tend to be more interesting, more fun, better quality rock.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to answer the question or whatever is that I think that we all climb in different ways at different times. And so, yeah, if you ran into me on a certain day on rifle, I'm trying to climb a grade and I might throw a little fit because I didn't, on the next day, I don't care. I'm just trying to do a bunch of routes. And then I go to the desert and I don't care. And then I go to the desert and I do care. It's like, I don't think, the one thing is that like, there's not just one way to do it. And I think most climbers have, these different times when they're in different modes, but I still go back to this, like somehow climbing hard for you. And this is something that Andrew and I talked about, was like climbing hard, whatever it means. Okay. Is really satisfying, whether that's 5'10" or 5'11", depending on who you are. But what you just said of being at your fittest that you've ever been and moving over rock and climbing moves that whatever of your past a month ago, 2 months ago, a year ago, you couldn't do. I mean, it's just great. And sport climbing tends to bring it out in us, but I remember feeling that way in Joshua Tree, climbing cracks. Like I wanted to climb harder cracks and I wanted them to feel good. And, so it's like they're combined, but they're not exactly the same thing of chasing grades versus climbing hard, because I think of chasing grades sometimes like, oh, that's that's easy for that grade, so I'm going to do it. Like that seems a little bit, suspect. But at the same time, it's like
in my mind, I'm trying to contrast two hypothetical situations.
Yeah.
Like, what if you're climbing something that's your hardest red point ever, and you're not moving well, and it's really hard, and you struggle, and you're shaking and everything, and you get through it? That's satisfying in one way. And what if you haven't been climbing in a year and you get off the couch and you go do some trad climb and you're terrified and you're trying to wiggle a nut in and it may only be 5'9" or whatever, but you succeed, and there's a similarity to those two situations and that you're at your sort of maximum? Is one more fulfilling than the other?
Yeah, but you see, you're actually
But they're
onto
both
something.
the same.
No, you're not. They're not, because if it was a 5'9" and you feel like you should have been able to climb it easily, the experience actually might be negative for you, even though
I
the
think
circumstances
the true
are
Zen master would actually get the same enjoyment out of that.
Sure, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like we're not that
Right.
person.
Yes.
And I think embedded in this question is that Zen master is the ideal. Like that you should go out and sort of enjoy it no matter what and not worry about.
And if that's the case, you should be able to go like pick up, I don't know, the sport of squash or something that you've never played and be able to go struggle with it and get the same kind of enjoyment. Like it really actually shouldn't. Climbing isn't the only experience that offers that.
Right.
So I guess we've got a long ways to go.
Yeah. But it's weird because I am actually working on a squash podcast.
Oh.
So
Well, I was thinking about it, like if I was going to go out, and I haven't been climbing for a year, but what would be more enjoyable? To get on something that's going to be challenging and I might have to struggle on a little bit, and quite honestly will get my brain to be quiet, which is what I love the most about climbing hard, or to go out and climb things that are not difficult, not challenging, and just do a bunch of mileage. And for me personally, that's never been very enjoyable because I can't get the same. When I'm trying so hard that my brain shuts up, I love that. That is why I like climbing hard.
Right.
But when I'm not having to really try that hard, my brain's wandering everywhere. I'm not in the moment, and I don't get that same feeling. So it's not as interesting. I don't know if that's a grade thing or what, but
Well, that's a really interesting way to put it.
that for me personally,
Quiet brain.
what I love about climbing is it's one of the only times in my everyday or week that my brain shuts up and is just focused in the moment.
You mean
and
your
I
brain
love that.
isn't shut up when you're teaching kindergarten?
No. No. It's 1,000 decisions a minute.
Yeah.
all right, well, we'll leave that one. I think that's
I think
a
we
topic.
did a great job.
Oh, nice. Good job, everybody. But I think it's a topic. I mean, it goes on and on and on. We've talked about it on the show before. Being suspicious of your motives in a sport where so much of it just depends on your kind of personal choice about how you climb things or style. Like the beginning of the show is like, we shall continue with style. It's important to re-examine those motives, I think.
I
and
totally
it's been a
agree with
huge
that.
part of climbing literature and everything else. I mean, it's all a game that we've just agreed on the rules, so.
Or made them up as we go.
I'm going to read another one. This one actually doesn't really have an issue in it. I just dig it. And I was going back through emails looking for these things, and I emailed this guy back when I got it. Most of these I have, actually. Sorry, you probably hear all that noise in there. And then when I found this again a couple days ago, I emailed him to see if he's, like, doing okay, but I haven't heard back from him. So if you're out there, Tyler, let me know what's going on, bro. So I'm just going to read this one. I don't think there's an issue to talk about. I've just recently found your podcast, and I'm incredibly thankful for it. My first taste of climbing was with a friend from Boulder who took me to El Dorado Canyon. Ever since then, I've been stoked on climbing and can't get enough. I got incredibly busy with school and moving to a new city, and so, unfortunately, I ended up not climbing for a while. This last year, I began climbing regularly with a friend, and life turned out much, much better. I graduated high school, so this is all going on in high school, which I'm jealous. I wish I'd discovered climbing in high school. I graduated high school, and I'm now on a year-long youth exchange in Slovakia. When I return, I will go on to college and hopefully live a full life of climbing. Here in Martin, Slovakia, there is only one place to climb. It's a small bouldering wall that's about 15 feet high and 35 feet long. I swear one of these days it's going to collapse. The wall pulls outward when you grab a hold and creaks and groans with every weight shift. Yesterday I had both hands I was on spin and lay me flat on my ass. This place is dingy and really sketchy, but it allows me to climb during the stupidly cold winter here, so it's better than nothing. I can't boulder for my life, never have been able to, and for those days where the janky overhanging wall kicks my ass, I'm thankful for having your podcast to listen to and get me stoked again. The Enormocast also keeps me entertained at school here, which is completely in Slovak. Slovak is stupidly hard and makes literally no grammatical sense to me. I have no clue what my teachers are saying when they're teaching. So my education this year is coming straight from the climbing world and the Enormo. Yes. Anyway, keep doing what you're doing. And if you think you want a few Enormocast stickers plastered throughout Slovakia, send them my way. I never did get a address from him anyway. Thanks for the motivation, the entertainment, and then there's some like crazy ass word with a bunch of umlauts and things on it, Tyler. So anyway, Tyler, dude, if you're out there, get in touch with me, man. I'm worried about you. This was from last winter, so
his only experience with climbing over there is on a artificial climbing wall?
Artificial, like, sounds like maybe outside or something, and it like creaks and groans and is going to fall over on him. So, I mean, I looked up Slovakia because I didn't know. Do you guys know where Slovakia is?
Sounds like it's got to be in Eastern Europe or something.
Yeah. Well, it's in the Balkans. It's like right next to, I think, Slovenia.
Yeah.
If I remember right. It's
I thought it was Slovenia, let's be honest. I didn't know it was different.
It's one of those Slavic countries there. So, I mean, he's in a zone. I mean, Europe's Europe. You can get places. So hopefully he got out and went climbing.
Train.
But when I emailed him back, I was like, the one thing I did say is that there has to be like some miniature, like, just rabid little group of climbers that live there. Because in these places where there's nothing to climb, that's where you get like the super fanatic like freaks, that have like climbing magazines that they can't read, but they look at the pictures and they're plastered on the wall, and there's like some dingy training center and like because
they're probably driving 12 hours every weekend to some awesome crag, and they're like doing it after a 50-hour work week.
Yeah, or they've got
find
some
those
like
people.
Scrubby, super over-polished wall with like 6 roots on it that they just like hammer on, and there's like a 14D like drilled pocket root that's like...
And if we tried to climb the easiest thing on it, we would fail miserably.
Right, exactly.
It's been drilled to the exact specifications as Action Direct.
Right.
Just there.
Right, exactly, yeah. So anyway, Tyler, if you're out there, buddy, give us a call.
His story reminds me of my uncle, who lives in West Texas, and there is that exact population of climbers who drive, like, for a day of climbing, they'll do 6 hours of driving, and they go to a bouldering area called No Trees, because it's in West Texas, and there's no trees, and it's one boulder amidst all these,
no trees.
pump jacks, and he's not alone.
Dude, all the people from Chicago driving 11+ hours every weekend to the Red. Getting in like middle of the night, Friday night, climbing all day, Saturday, all Sunday, going all the way home Sunday night, every weekend, Canada. There's people from Toronto driving down
let's
every
raise our
weekend.
glass to the effort being put out to rock
get there, and here we are.
Yeah.
Climbing all around us.
I need some more wine.
Glug, 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 glug. I'll do the sound effect.
All right, moving on.
Can I tell you a quick story that you can edit out
Of course,
if you need
man.
to? So one experience that my West Texas uncle had is he got called into this like church group or something because they had a problem with their climbing wall and they knew he was a climber and he thought they could fix it, or they thought he could fix it. So he goes in and he sees their climbing wall and he says, yeah, every time someone climbs on it, they grab a hold and the hold falls off. So this is the setup. Is a climbing wall with a seat that's been pulled out of a Suburban lying on the floor with the seat belts, and the belayers strap themselves into the seat belts, and then belay on top rope. All the T-nuts have been put in on the opposite side of the wall, so every single hold that you pull on comes out.
And they put the T-nuts in backwards,
The
like
T-nuts are
the
on
wrong
the wrong side of the wall.
So the only thing holding the holds on is like the grabbing of the
It
T-nut.
just falls out.
It's better because every time they fall, there's all this slack in the rope because like the Suburban seat is way back, and then the Suburban seat gets tugged towards the wall every single time.
Where is it?
I don't understand the
In
seat.
West
Why
Texas.
they don't have harness? Is this instead of a harness?
Because they think that the belayer needs to be somehow strapped to the ground. So
Right,
they're
right,
sitting in the
ground
Suburban
anchor.
seat with a seatbelt. So I just thought that was one of the best stories I've ever heard. And I can just see all those holds flying out.
How they put
And
it back
he
up
looked at
every
it,
time?
and he's like, yeah, I see your problem.
Turn the wall around.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I don't know why it's not working.
Did he help them? Did they fix it?
I assume they did.
All right.
David's a real helpful person. He probably turned all the T-nuts around that day.
You guys don't quite understand how this is supposed to work. I have another one. And this seems like a really easy answer, but it may not be. So I have a question for your listener mail. See, he actually solicited listener mail, so you made it, Mike. I have a question for your listener mail, or maybe you can just tell me. What the hell does a free ascent mean anyway? What are the rules exactly? Does it mean you have to red point every pitch, no falling or resting, or do you just have to do the moves free?
I don't know anything about multi-pitch. This is all you guys.
Well,
On
I
a
mean,
sport route, you can't weight the rope.
I don't claim to be expert, but I think
Or
what he's
touch the
saying is
gear.
if you do a move and then hang, and then do another move and then hang, is that a valid ascent? And we would all say, no, that's not a valid
No
ascent.
way, no way.
Right? I mean, yeah, you have to, under anybody's rules I know of, you have to get from the one anchor to the next without hanging on the rope.
Okay.
Or
for a
pulling
free
on gear.
ascent. Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's like for one pitch climb. You got to leave the ground and get to the anchor without hanging on the rope, pulling on gear under your own power.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, leading it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a free ascent. Now, what about on these multi-pitch routes? Now, Jen, you claim
out.
you can put in, but like, all right, let me just put this out there. Okay, there was a time, right, when guys would get on a route and swap leads. Okay, one person would lead, then second it, and then the second would lead the next pitch, and the next guy would...
Piana and Skinner.
Okay. Although those guys, I think, didn't one of them jug it?
No, I don't know.
All right, whatever. So, but that seems to have gone a little bit by the wayside in the past, or in the kind of modern era. Like, let's talk about El Cap. Like, the Hubers brought in this era where the one person has to lead the whole thing, right?
That seems to be the new standard to me.
Right.
I mean, like, Tommy doesn't claim a free ascent until he himself has led all the pitches.
Right.
Right?
I don't know.
I think we need to get Tommy on the show because he is the...
It's a great time. He's injured.
That's true. Yeah. I know. I think
But
about
wait,
Tommy
in one
Caldwell all the
push?
time.
Ground to top. So you have to lead them all on that.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Push?
This isn't that simple of an answer
yes.
when it comes to multi-pitch climbing.
Yes.
I thought
think
just
it's gotten-
one member of the team. I don't climb multi-pitch, so this is my layman's understanding, that one member of the team had to climb each pitch free without weighting the rope, but it didn't matter which one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
That's what I had
I think that's
understood.
an older era of climbing. I think the standard has changed. But
Now both have to?
well, I think that it's less about team ascents nowadays, and it's become more a measure of an individual's
Right.
ascent.
You know, like UG leads every pitch.
Right.
And somebody jugs along with him and belays
Yeah.
him. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, that job sucks.
Yeah, well, he's got minions. It works out for him. So
What would Hayden say?
he's old school though. Hayden would say that, yeah.
You have to
you gotta-
both lead the pitches
You
somehow.
have to start. Right. You have to start at the ground and go to the top. But you know, it's interesting. The reason because historically this whole thing has changed quite a bit. You know, because I was just talking to Russ Clune, and he was free climbing in an era where the yo-yo ascent was still valid, which was where if you climbed, let's say the route is 100 feet long, you climbed to 60 feet and fell, you would lower to the ground. The next dude would climb on the top rope to the 60-foot mark. He might go another 10 feet, fall, come to the ground. Next guy climbs to there, goes, and if they eventually one guy got to basically top rope the whole route and clip the chains, that was good. That was
that
a free
before they
ascent.
figured out how to say take?
Yeah, no, that was like right when hangdogging wasn't even allowed. So, I mean, you know, Mike here has a point because it's a little bit like amorphous as to what it all means anymore.
Well, when Scotty Brooks did what he claimed to be the second free ascent of the nose,
Right.
didn't he get really criticized for his style of ascent? And some people claimed that it wasn't because he had like climbed various parts of the route on different trips and on different, you know.
And also there was at least one or two pitches that he didn't lead. Yeah.
Yeah, he top roped.
But I don't think that Scotty ever like made some big claim of like this was like
yeah, right.
you know, the second ascent.
Right,
You know,
right.
it was he was willing to admit the caveat that it was like these two things didn't quite get done.
Yeah.
you
Wait,
know?
what if you fall on the third pitch and you come down and you don't have to go to the ground, do you? Can you just pull the rope and try the third pitch
I think
again?
that's considered valid these
Yeah,
days.
and
as
that's
well.
what
valid?
all those guys on El Cap are doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
just have to do each pitch from the ground to the top without waiting the rope.
Right. And if you fall, you can
On
pull
lead.
the rope. Yeah, on lead. And you can pull the rope and try it again. And I think,
You can stay up as long as you want. You could be up there for a month doing that.
Right.
And that's cool?
yeah, no, totally.
Oh, okay.
That's totally cool. Actually, because that's happened. I think when Steph did the Salate head wall, Steph Davis, when she did the Salate head wall, I think she was up there for quite a long time before she finally did the free version of that pitch. Or of those two pitches, whatever it happens to be.
That's my style. I like that. That's what I would do.
Okay.
And I guess that's like when you say that's my style, that reminds us all that like this is a subjective deal.
Yeah, but there has to be some standard.
You just have to do 10
I
red
mean,
points without
some
touching the
standard
ground
for the
again.
people who care about the some standard, right?
Yeah.
I suppose. I mean, one thing I've noticed too, on a completely different note, or not completely, but related, is the sort of conflation of the flash versus the true onsite. Like there was a time not that long ago, within a decade, where an onsite meant that you had no clue about anything on the route, and in fact, the Frenchies, to get the avu,
Right,
they
they
were the
turn
ones
their back,
they
yeah.
would belay with their backs turned because they didn't. What you weren't allowed to watch your buddy climb it if you wanted to do the true onsite. You couldn't watch him and get movement.
Wait, could the draws be hanging? Or is that
In the
a
old
pink
days,
point?
no, because that was a pink point. But then that was the first thing to go.
Yeah, that's
was
gone.
the pink point, I think. But the flash, I think, is gone as well.
No, I think the flash
I mean,
is all
not the
there
flash.
is. The on-site. On-site, sight unseen, you know nothing. If you belayed your friend, you can't on-site it. I'm sorry.
I think I agree with you, but I don't think that. I think that on-sites are frequently flashes are frequently
Reported
referred to
as on-sites.
or reported as on-sites.
That's because people are liars. It's not.
Well, it could be because they're liars, and it also could be because our sport has evolved to a higher level where we're like, does it really matter? You
we could
climbed
just
it
call
on
it
your first
try.
Good for
But
you.
is it first try or first try French?
First, yeah. We need a French
Because
person
that's
on
a
the
whole
show.
nother issue.
And so, one more quick question. So it's like we're on this subject. If you say that let's say you try a route, you fall. Okay, so now you're red pointing. Okay. And so the second time you try it, you fall like 10 times, but it's considered one try because you just tied in once.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's one try.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Could take 2 hours, whatever.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Because
and you could lower back to the 6-inch mark.
Yeah, and still be on one
climb
try.
it again, and it would still be one
That's
try.
why I'm going with my particular theory on this multi-pitch thing. You
Okay.
just have to do all the red points without touching the ground
I think
again.
that is pretty standard on these hard routes now, is that somebody red points the pitches, all of them, but they can try them multiple times.
Yep.
And I think, I don't know, like I've gotten kind of lost paying attention to what Tommy and those guys are up to, but I believe that's kind of his goal, right? Is that someday he leaves the ground and maybe in a multi-day effort, he does all the pitches.
Well, they haven't.
I mean,
all the pitches haven't gone free yet,
but I think
have all the moves gone free?
Yeah. I think so, but I think doesn't that seem like that's his goal eventually?
I
Not necessarily.
I can't speculate on his goal, but it does seem like that is the coolest, purest way to climb the route, and I think we would all be rooting for him to do that.
Yeah.
Everyone
Well, wait, no.
agrees
The
that-
purest way would be to leave the ground and get to the top and never wait the rope.
Right, but that's too late. It's too late for that.
No, in one push.
Oh, in one push, so you never fell.
No one
at all.
ever fell. That's what I thought it meant at
Free soloing
first.
the route.
Right.
When I first heard about it, and then Andrew told me I was very wrong.
Well, it's funny because you and I tried the Moonlight Buttress together. Rob and I tried the Moonlight Buttress together. And that, I can't remember what our malfunction was that we didn't free it. But with Rob, I distinctly remember that in my mind, I couldn't fall at all. So even though if I fell on a pitch, and this was quite a while ago, but to me, I was done. I'd blown it. I couldn't. It never occurred to me to just be like, oh, let me do this
try
pitch
it again.
You had to red point the whole thing.
without
That's
falling.
true.
Yeah.
You know?
No, you're right. That is a different frame of mind, and I think very few people actually have that.
Well, I don't
The
anymore.
chutzpah,
I was like thinking about it. I'm like, why didn't I just, because it was like, I fell on the one of the last pitches.
Well, you fell on the boulder
pull the
problem,
rope and try
actually.
again.
The,
Well,
the
with
jump
you.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be something that you could clearly come down and try again.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I was like, now I'm thinking like, why didn't I just come down and free it so I don't have to go back?
Well, the fact that thought crossed your mind
Right.
means you're closer than I am, because that thought never even crossed my mind. I was like, I climbed the Moonlight Buttress in any shape, way, or form. That was pretty cool.
All right. Well, that didn't really answer his question, but
I think
it's
we
food for
did.
thought. Yeah. So, I think it's one of those things where like, in your heart of hearts when you haven't freed it.
It's like when you kind of do a
Basically.
dyno and the rope sort of catches the swing just a little bit. And you know.
Yeah.
Oh, you know.
Yeah.
But you kind of want to keep going, but you know it doesn't count.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to read this one, even though I have to do a little background on it, because I want to revisit this as long as you're here, Jen. This is from Jess. She's a UK climber, and
Wait, University of Kentucky, or she lives in England?
she lives in England,
Okay.
I think. Although I'm actually not that clear on what the UK is.
It's the United Kingdom.
I know what it stands for.
I think
but
it's all.
who's
I'm
in
not
it?
going to even say anything because I'm
Because
ignorant.
Ireland's not in it.
Oh, don't even. I offer no.
I teach
help
kindergarten.
here.
You says
Okay,
I got that down.
I know Ireland's not in it because, and I knew
England,
that, but
Britain,
I accidentally
United
said
Kingdom.
something about it in an email to an Irish listener, and he gave me a hard time about it. But I actually knew it. I just slipped up. But they were, and then they got independence.
Well,
right?
if you feel
Irish
bad
listeners.
about it, we could just ask somebody who lives in the UK to
Yeah.
name off 50 states, and then we'll
Right.
feel like, okay.
No, I don't feel bad about it at all.
'Cause I do
just
a
like I
little
don't
bit.
really feel bad that I don't know where the hell Slovakia is either. It's like, do you know where Nebraska is? Guy from Slovakia? I don't think so. All right.
Probably
Anyway.
does. Probably do.
So this just was this is one she dashed off, obviously, because she didn't even use capitals here. So it says, so I was gnashing my teeth over what a minefield it is climbing with guys, and my friend sent me a link to episode 12. Nice program. And episode 12 was the episode with Grayson and Tracy about called "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon," about Grayson's own problems with this, although Tracy had them in the past.
It was
as
a very
well.
controversial episode, if I remember correctly.
I wish. It was sort of controversial.
I think Andrew and I got in a fight about it.
Well, let me just say this: when we put that episode out, you're right. It was a little bit controversial because I actually did get quite a few emails. Some were like, "There's no way that stuff happened to her," and then there was other girls who were like, "Oh my God, that same kind of crap has happened to me." Is this outrageous? This idea that women are embattled in the climbing world by dudes?
No.
No.
I've had many very, very interesting experiences at the hands of being in a male-dominated sport. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's outrageous
The
at
hands
all.
specifically?
Huh?
Nothing.
Oh my gosh, I've had so many weird things. And I think almost, okay, so one of the first climbing trips I ever went on with a guy, because who else are you going to go on a climbing trip with? And I lived in Florida. So there were all of like 6 climbers.
I forgot you're from
It was
Florida.
one girl and a bunch of guys. And on this trip, the guy just didn't bring a tent.
Sure.
And we
of course
get there,
not. Yeah,
and he's
it's
just
raining. It's pouring rain.
He's going to sleep in my tent. Which I found to be a little of an awkward situation. And I spent a lot of time worrying that he was going to accidentally or purposefully touch me in the night, so much so that I slept in the front seat of my car the whole trip.
And you gave him the tent?
Yes. But on the other hand, I met my husband climbing.
Uh-huh.
And at first it was kind of like, I wouldn't have thought that that's how that was going to end. So,
Where did you guys meet?
Well, we have very differing stories on that exact question. Andrew insists that I put a orange Tic Tac into his mouth while he was belaying. And thus I was hitting on him.
Where?
At the Arsenal. That's what he says.
You do that?
Well,
You have no recollection
There's
of that, or
no
you're-
way I did that. There is simply no way I did that.
You should tell Andrew that when he revisits a memory often, it changes the
Yeah.
memory.
Oh, yeah. Except for the only thing is, it wasn't orange Tic Tac, and I do kind of like orange Tic Tacs. So that part makes it seem a little more plausible, but I don't think it happened the way he said it. I remember meeting at a climbing party at Danny and Wendy's house on this very infamous 4th of July that got a little out of control. And that's my story. But I've had a lot of weird guy situations rock climbing where it's a little ambiguous
Man, I take
to
that for
them
granted.
what's going on.
You what?
I take it. I
You don't
don't
have to
think
worry about
about
that.
that very often. Yeah, I know. It sucks for you.
Well, I don't worry about it anymore.
Yeah. So it helps to be married and like,
Well, I think it helps to be established in a community.
yeah.
Right, yeah, I'm not going to go climb with you and like, oh, hey, man.
If Chris asked me to go climbing,
So I heard Andrew's out in Australia.
I'm not worried about Hayden's intentions when he calls up
Right.
for a climbing partner,
That's a big part of it. You're right.
It's
the
being
community.
established. Well,
yeah.
when I first started climbing in the red, I didn't know people and you weren't established. And then after you've been in a community for a long time, it stops
Yeah.
happening.
So is that the context of the person who wrote that to you? Are they sort of a beginning climber in a community? Where
No, I think it basically, because I actually ended up corresponding with her a little bit, and she climbs mostly, or at least from what I gathered from the emails, in a bouldering gym, and so it's more of a gym
man.
thing, and that's
Yeah.
like because
I
she
could see
actually
that
said
being a neat
in hers, it says something about her frustrations in the boulder gym, and when I first wrote her back, I actually wrote her back because I thought she meant that she was climbing in Boulder.
But it was a bouldering
Yeah,
gym. Yes.
but as soon as she said that, I pictured the spot or freaking the cock rub or
yeah.
whatever, and I was just like, oh my god, of course, like it's like the worst,
It's
It's just
awful.
like it's like a full on singles meeting up hangout, and
especially if it's in a college town or something,
But
then it's even worse.
then she got back to me and was like, yeah, I'm not in Boulder, or I figured it out, but then she explained, basically like, I think I have it here.
I think it's just a really tricky thing, and it kind of forces you to be a little more upfront and I don't know, maybe even sometimes kind of bitchy than you really are. And I always worry that people are going to think I was like a bitchy person, but really you just want to go rock climbing and not have to worry about getting hit on or having this assumption that meant something other than just going rock climbing.
Okay, well, here, I've got her response back, actually. She clarifies. It says, I'm really new to bouldering. I started this year, and I totally love it. And the guys I meet aren't usually jerks in the, hey, little lady, let me show you how to tie your knot kind of way.
That's good, because that happens too.
So maybe that's just a difference between bouldering and climbing? ? Don't know. It's not that I mind the flirtation. It's generally all fun, and no one has yet gone in for the snog unexpectedly. Poor Grayson. And that was a reference to Grayson's, some guy making the move while she was still tied into a top rope. For me, it's been more navigating the difference between saying that you're going for a climb and agreeing to go for a climb with someone. To me, there's a clear difference between the two, especially when it's bouldering rather than climbing where you need a partner. Sure, I'm going to be in the gym, but that's not me promising myself to anyone. Although, yeah, flip side, I totally have to ask a dude to climb with me when it's been a full-on flirt. However, that did make the crucial differentiation between are you climbing tonight and would you like to climb with me tonight? A simple but important distinction to me.
It's a very good point.
Man, just a few little words.
Yeah. All right, so Michael Logan, and I'll put my piece in here too. So you're on the other side of this, okay? You're the guy. So are you guilty of this? Have you been guilty of this?
Prior to being married,
family man to a woman that you love and will be with for all time.
No. I've been in other scenarios, non-climbing situations, like I went skiing with this woman who I thought I was going on a date with. But it was like I was the one who was the victim here, not the perpetrator.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she's like, yeah, let's go skiing. I have a place we can stay in Telluride. We stayed in the place in Telluride, and it was her boyfriend's place. And I thought we were on a date. So
that's bullshit on her
You're
part.
not the only person I've heard a very similar story from.
You've got to make that shit clear. That's not fair.
Okay. Well, anyway. It's my fault in the end. But no, I don't think I have been on the end of the like, hey, do you want me to show you how to tie that knot? I have not done that. But maybe others would disagree. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive, but I don't think so.
Well, the thing I'd say from my perspective is that, you know, and I listen to the Savage Love podcast with Dan Savage, and he's famous for sort of repeating this line that, like, you know, because people call in like these relationships go bad, and he's like, yeah, every relationship goes bad until one doesn't, right? Because you have to go through these ones that go bad, and so it's like I kind of like think like, you know, there's all these unwanted advances, but then there's the one that you did want, because I've been on both sides of it where, you know, I was climbing with someone who I was sort of interested in and they weren't interested in me, you know, or I've been on things where it's like, you know, there is this sort of mutual attraction, because most of us climbers a lot of us want to end up with a climber, or we think we do anyway. And so, I mean, it's just kind of like, it's easy to want to believe that like none of those sort of politics are going on, but I think there actually are going on a lot of times, you know.
Right.
And yeah, everybody oversteps their bounds, and I think guys are worse at it. But you know, I mean, guys are guys. Like we gotta like, I mean, we're sort of attracted to everything.
Well, they're not like, I'm trying to think of a sport that's like equitable with men and women. It's like tennis or something.
Right.
It's not like that. There's a lot more guys than girls. And if you completely turn yourself off to all of those advances, then I don't find Andrew when when he comes along. Like, it's kind of just a sort of a part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's exactly the problem. It's like,
and then just get more of it because you're a girl.
And so women have to deal with it, and men are like, oh, they're totally
just
every time
take
they
anyone
see
that comes along.
Yeah, they're psyched.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, in my lifetime with climbing, that's shifted quite a bit, but it's still, I mean, outrageously outnumbered. You know, so I would like to say, it's just like everywhere else in life, but I think it's still so lopsided in the guy world, you know.
Well, it probably is just like everywhere else in life, except for instead of the targets being spread out amongst a lot of people, there's not a lot of women. So all the target, you know, it's
right.
Instead of being spread out amongst 100 people, there's only 20.
Right.
And now you're going to get more of it than you would normally see.
Yeah.
And it can get annoying, but
it would be interesting to see if you went into an urban gym what the ratio would be. Because I bet that in an urban gym, there might be more women than men. And I wonder if it changes the dynamic in there.
I don't know modern-wise, but it definitely, like when I worked in a gym quite a long time ago.
It was still, more
yeah.
guys.
But, you know, the thing is that, and Jess kind of gets at this in this email, like, she understands that that's sort of part of the dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's young people. If it's a gym in an urban setting, then, I mean, what are people from the ages of 20 to 30 doing? They're out trying to meet people, you know? So this is just another way. And, like, you know, I've often said, like, it's kind of an interesting way to meet people because, A, you get to see them physically. And let's face it, we're a good-looking bunch, us climbers.
I was going to say just that.
You know?
At least we're fit.
I mean, yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
in terms of
It's
specimens of the sort of cross-section.
I mean, it's not like going to the hot springs.
Right. The Bay of Pigs. Yeah, so it's
The
like,
water park.
you know, and to watch people doing something physically, but then also, like, you know, it's like you get to see someone demonstrate some competence at something. Like, I mean, to me, it's like,
Right.
It tells you so much more about a person than, let's say, going on a date.
It enhances the possibility
Right.
for attraction.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
without a doubt. You
Well,
know,
we
and then there's
also-
sports bras, and
Yeah.
there's guys with their shirts
Yeah.
off, and you know,
Oh,
like
goodness.
Verve shorts. Like,
Yeah.
God bless Verve shorts.
I don't know.
When I
but-
worked in the gym in LA,
You loved Verve shorts.
I would, like, because my job was to, like, walk around the gym and, like, just, you know, keep an eye on things on a busy night, like look for knots being tied right and belaying being done right. But you know, I would thank
Shorts being worn right.
Christian Griffith. I would, at the end of the night, I would, like, light up a little incense and let it burn into the night for Christian Griffith, because every year, like, you thought his shorts were short. And then next year he'd make them shorter, and you were like, "They
The
can't get
sports
any
bra is
shorter,
even
Christian
smaller.
Griffith." And yet here he would come up with some new
And
shorts.
two-toned.
Yeah. So
Well, the
Anyway.
other thing, I think the other point is, yes, you get to see people performing a physical feat, trying hard, all of that. But like we said before, climbing, it's so consuming of time that you want to find somebody who can share that
Support
time
that,
with you and understand that time.
Sure.
So, yeah, guys are looking for girls who climb because now you don't have your... You
No, it
know,
makes a
someone
lot of
nagging
sense.
at you every time
Yeah.
you want to go out.
plus, frankly, it's the only girls they end up talking to because they're spending all their time climbing.
Exactly.
It's not like part of the week they're running around, you know,
Well,
going
and-
out or doing anything else.
And don't you
so.
want to be with someone who shares a passion with you, whatever that is?
Yeah.
And climbing is so time consuming. Why not, if you can swing it, share that passion?
So have we decided that it's just the sad reality?
It's kind of just a sad reality.
I don't even think it's that sad. And I think,
It's
like I
probably
said,
not that
in
sad.
Jess's follow-up, it doesn't seem quite as annoying. She's as annoyed.
I think my only advice is, yeah, it's a little annoying, but if you just turn it, you know, if you just never allow any advances, then
Yeah. You just gotta be
that one
super
time
clear.
that it's maybe wanted, you're going to miss it.
Right.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. I get it now.
Well, you just like, you know, maybe if you just shut yourself off to the every guy's just thinking he's going to sleep with me. These
Right.
guys are such scum. If you just think like that, then you're gonna, you know, you're probably single too, or maybe you're not, and then then you can advertise that just fine. But you just miss out on someone's going to come along at some point that maybe you didn't want to shut out.
Let me say this, and then we'll close this thing. One thing is, Jess was sort of implying like these guys think they're on a date, not necessarily all the way to sleeping with her. Although I guess it's kind of the same thing, admittedly, from a guy's point of view. Anyway, the thing I'm going to say is that from a girl's standpoint is that you can actually, like, without being mean or crass or over the top, like, you can actually get it out there. Especially like your situation where you went and stayed at this boyfriend's thing, okay? Like, if you have a boyfriend, okay, or a girlfriend, and you're a dude, like, it's pretty easy
Or if you
to...
have a girlfriend and you're a girl, or boyfriend and you're a guy, all
Thank you.
fine.
We're very, very open to that. is that you can get that into the conversation really early.
First paragraph.
And if you do not.
Totally.
And I've been on this side of things. If you do not, if I'm hanging out with you for quite a while and I've never heard of this boyfriend until the last second.
You're right. Foul.
There's either you aren't that stoked on this boyfriend, or maybe in my case, but way back when I was a guide, basically you're using me because I'm going to take you up these climbs.
You're trying to get something out of it.
And so at that point, all bets are off. And you can't get offended at anything that because we've been climbing for a couple days and I never heard about this guy. Like, it's pretty easy to get it in there. And so, like, if it does bother you, like, advertise it right away.
Yeah, it's not that difficult.
Although most guys will hear the word boyfriend and they'll still try. But that's
But at least it's out there.
Right.
At least you're not leading it on.
That guy.
Because you can't be offended if you've led someone to believe something that's not true.
Right.
Let's go on this trip and we'll do all this stuff. It's going to be great. And then right when it's getting to that point, oh, by the way, I have a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm. And I think that with, like, even though this is probably the same in all pursuits, whether men and women get together, there's the sexual politics. But I can't help but feeling that that climbing maybe isn't the most intense, but it intensifies it over the workplace or anything else because of this physical thing, because of the trips.
Because you're staying in the same tent or same campground.
To go away for a weekend to climb is a really common thing. And that's the one when I'm saying, like, get it out there that you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, because that's the one I always hear.
Or arrange sleeping arrangements
from
up
the
front.
get-go.
Yeah.
I've got my tent. Do you have your tent? Did you bring your
tent? I will,
tent?
I'm sure, get emails about this because a lot of climber guys and girls have been in this situation where, it's one thing to say, hey, do you want to climb tonight in the gym? It's quite another to go on a weekend overnight trip. And I know plenty of climbers that have been in this situation of like, well, what does this mean? We're going to go up to blah, blah, blah. Or the other one is that some boyfriend is like,
what do you mean you're going on a trip with that dude?
Trip with that dude, exactly.
Yeah,
or
like
vice
what?
versa. Because the guy knows what he would be thinking. So he's like, wait a minute. But you know what I mean? Like, those situations in climbing are a little different than normal
that's
life.
Interesting. We, as climbers, tend to think that we're really special. And we tend to think that our sport is more special than others. And I'm wondering if that's true. Like,
what if basketball's just like this?
What if
CrossFit
golfers
competitions?
Dude,
who knows?
People do not go to Europe for a month to golf.
They might.
They might.
Like,
very well
and they're
might.
like, yeah, I got this whole trip planned. I'm going to
But what about surfers? What about surfers?
Surfing is really similar. There's no doubt about that.
This is the next episode.
It is?
Is climbing
tell me what
special? Is climbing special?
You can't say it's not special and have an Enormocast.
Yeah, exactly. It's not
more special than
squash.
Than squash. I know this is sort of leading us astray, but I'm curious.
I'm in a total agreement, Jen, that surfing is the closest parallel because of the travel,
the lack of clothing,
the destination.
The dedication to the lifestyle of like give everything else up and be poor. And everything else.
That's different.
But I'm in agreement.
I'm saying that, like, yeah, it is. I don't know if it's special in the whatever that word implies, but this show is all about the fact that it's different. Like I said, my dad, who's a golfer, has never been like, sweet, I got the month off. I'm gonna be like, I'm going to go to Scotland and golf there, and then I'm going to road trip down to, like, there's this course I heard about in southern England, like, it's supposed to be rad. And, like, got the worst, like, sand traps. And then, it's like, that, doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying?
It's a little bit true.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be awesome. I'd watch that movie.
I think it's
about, like, a couple dudes, like, dirtbagging around England playing golf.
And then surfing, and then it's, like, sightseeing. That's next.
If it's so special, then how come we get to experience it? Like, that just seems so unfair.
Case in point, we're special.
That's true. We are special. No, I mean, like I say this all the time. There's an elitism to it, and we've chosen to do this at the sacrifice of a bunch of different things in our lives.
That's actually
and you talked about that at the beginning of the show, you know, that now you're realizing this balance. But, like, you know, it's painful, it's difficult. We mostly fail, especially sport climbing.
Mostly always fail.
You know, bouldering, whatever. So, I mean, we're special, man. That's just all I got to say about it.
I would agree.
Hopefully some non-climber out there hears this podcast and goes and tries it out for the first time. And sees the
I got plenty of that. I get plenty of that. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, all right.
Just crowding up our cliffs. Thanks a lot. This is completely a joke.
You don't have any more letters for us?
No, that's it.
That's it?
Well,
People,
we've been doing
you
this
got to
for an
mail
hour.
us in some letters.
Hour and 12 minutes, dude.
Okay.
So we got to wrap
This is
it
fun.
up.
Yeah, we could just stay here. There's some wine left.
There is wine left.
You want to go pack? I'm going to Bishop tomorrow.
So you're going climbing tomorrow?
Wait.
The truth comes out.
What's going on?
Well, I'm going to the American Alpine Club Kragen Classic. Okay, this is
For
what
the
I
weekend?
know about it. I am supposed to be on a plane at 8:40 a.m. Friday morning in Denver.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And
I thought
then,
you meant tomorrow.
no, goodness.
Tomorrow.
And then I don't know if we're camping. I don't actually know what's going on. That's why my phone's been blowing up.
Deal?
No, he's not going. It's just me.
Oh, really?
And then we're going to be in Bishop, and then I'm going to come home on Monday. So I've been writing sub-plans like crazy lady for the last few days.
Yeah.
So you're going to miss Friday, Monday.
Friday, Monday. It's going to be super fun, and I hope I get to climb. But I will
Sub-plans
suck
are the
so poor at
antithesis
it.
of climbing.
Sub-plans?
They're just as special.
They're not as special.
No, I mean, they're like, there's no other job on the planet that requires you to write a detailed list of instructions for a stranger to come in and do your job.
No,
Think
it
about
requires in 8 hours to get someone to teach for 6 hours.
Exactly.
And you know they're going to do a poor job at it. Like, not any fault of their own. It's just, how would you do it?
So,
how would you just walk into a kindergarten room and just do it? Like,
back to
And so the climbers sprayed on into the night. The street sounds in the background, and the wine was delicious. Please remember that if you'd like to get in touch with the Enormocast for any reason, including trying to get a letter on to the next Listener Mail episode, you can email Chris at enormocast.com. That is all we have for you tonight. So as you snuggle down into perhaps that unwanted bivvy, or perhaps with that unwanted tent mate, don't forget to make sure and understand those sleeping arrangements ahead of time. And don't forget to check your knot.
Hey, do you like golf, Mr. Kramer?
Yeah.
Mr. Kramer, I've been reading some of your material here. I got to be honest with you. You make a pretty strong case. I mean, just imagine an army of men in wool pants running through the neighborhood handing out pottery catalogs door to door. Well, it's my job. And I'm pretty damn serious about it.